Corridors, Part 5, Intelligence.
First Prelate Ewardian peered over the star map, examining the state of the war. The combined forces of the first Onathin fleet and the second Credith swarm host had managed to retake 3 of the 6 systems in the Renteller star cluster that had previously been captured by the Forsaken. Unfortunately, the colonies in those systems had already been destroyed, and with them 3 billion Credith citizens in total. The other 3 systems likely suffered the same fate. Prelate Ewardian focused the star map on the Renteller star cluster and scrutinized it more closely. The problem with defending star clusters is that there are too many fronts. The stars are so close in proximity that it is possible to jump to several star systems from a single origin system. With the 6 systems that the Forsaken initially held, they had access to 15 of the 18 systems in the star cluster. The second Onathin fleet had been playing cleanup, jumping from system to destroy vanguard forces and scout ships, while the other fleets had engaged the main Forsaken forces in those 6 systems. The vanguard force that had attacked the Winyan system in the Credith home cluster still troubled First Prelate Ewardian. There was something about that maneuver that disturbed him. It seemed like a deliberate, planned operation to accomplish an objective, and Prelate Ewardian had a sneaking suspicion that he had played right into some sort of trap the Forsaken had laid out. A blinking light on his console interrupted his reverie. He answered the incoming transmission and smiled formally as Ambassador Evans' face washed into view.
Greetings, Ambassador. I congratulate you on the success of your Pathfinder project.
Prelate Ewardian remembered watching the recordings of the probe being fired into space. It had created a white wreath of light, similar to the standard interstellar drives, before vanishing to deep space, leaving a smoking white ember behind. After a few hours, the white ember expanded into a whirling sphere of flickering white light, encompassing the human's prototype spaceship. A brief flash of light heralded the spaceship's departure from the system. A corresponding flash of light appeared in the Sol system as the head of the probe exploded and expanded from the incoming mass of the spaceship, which appeared in the probe's place. Prelate Ewardian extended his wings in greeting.
What can I help you with, Ambassador?
Thank you, First Prelate. I have a couple of items I would like to discuss with you.
Ambassador Evans began.
A week ago, I've had a number of shocking revelations while touring Sakala Station. First, I met a Drinel for the first time, and then was stunned to hear that their republic had been destroyed by an unknown aggressor, and was further shocked to find that both the Onathin sovereignty and the Credith Dominion are now engaged in a defensive war against these Forsaken.
I apologize, Ambassador. I felt it was unnecessary to trouble you with tidings of war so early into our relationship.
First Prelate replied.
I understand, First Prelate.
Evans acknowledged.
I have discussed the matter with my government, and they agree with my recommendation. I hereby formally announce humanity's entrance into this war. We will help in any way we can.
First Prelate Ewardian bowed in appreciation.
Thank you for your assistance, Ambassador Evans.
Prelate Ewardian appreciated the sentiment, but did not really expect the war to unfold any differently with humanity's entrance.
What do you propose to do first?
In order to be of any help,
Evans began.
We would need to know the battlefield. If you have a star map of some kind, detailing Allied fleet locations, enemy fleet estimations, jump points, and other similar vital information, it would greatly help our admirals and generals plan our strategy for this war.
First Prelate Ewardian debated inwardly. Giving humans access to the war nexus would allow them to see all of our military assets, colonies, outposts, and everything else. It would be a serious breach of security. The Onathin Parliament wouldn't stand for this.
And what would you do with this information? What good will your plans be for the war effort?
Granted, humanity has no warships to offer into the fight. Hell, we barely have a civilian commerce fleet. However, what we plan to do for now is to fly to the hot zones with our largest civilian spacecraft and try to evacuate as many refugees as possible.
Ambassador Evans smiled.
With our Pathfinder probes, it would be a lot easier for us to facilitate evacuation procedures. We've already begun working out the logistics for evacuating entire worlds.
Prelate Ewardian leaned back on his perch. Their intentions seemed noble enough.
We can accomplish the same goal if I were to inform you ahead of time of the worlds under siege. You don't necessarily require full access to our military intelligence.
Ambassador Evans' smile faded gently.
There is another reason.
He began, looking pensive.
At my insistence, humanity has offered its homeworld to all surviving Drinel that are still adrift out there between the stars. We were hoping your military intelligence would have detailed information on all of their locations.
Evans drew a breath.
It's not just refugees we want to save. We also want to save the Drinel civilization from extinction. We know that the Onathins' sovereignty and the Credith Dominion have their hands full with the war. But we can't just let an entire species slip into the darkness, unnoticed and unspoken.
First, Prelate Ewardian thought back to the covert messages he had been receiving from diplomat Pelin. The green-feathered Onathin had mentioned his surprise at how the humans wept upon hearing the tragic fate of a species that they had just met, and how this sorrow was quickly turned into a steely resolve to resist the seemingly inevitable. He chirped.
As always, Ambassador, your words are passionate and powerful. As such, I suggest a compromise. I will send over the most current map of the war fronts, with relevant information about the contested systems, and permit Diplomat Pelin to answer any questions you may have regarding the history of the war, or its current state. It will not have any fleet information, however, since the Parliament will surely impeach me if I hand that information over. As for your quest to save the Drinel, I will send over the most current and accurate census data, so you may know where to look for them. That should suffice for now.
Ambassador Evans bowed.
Thank you, First Prelate. I have one more favor to ask of you.
First Prelate Ewardian cocked his head.
Another favor?
Yes. I would request that you transmit this message to the entire Onathin sovereignty.
Prelate Ewardian's console beeped at the incoming transmission. He looked questioningly at Evans, who continued.
It's a message for the Drinel. A message of hope, to let them know that a home waits for them, so that they would be willing to come with us when we find them. Feel free to preview it before you broadcast it. I'm sure you'll find it appropriate.
Prelate Ewardian nodded, a habit he picked up from Ambassador Evans.
I shall review it and inform you of my decision.
Thank you, First Prelate. May the winds blow in your favor.
Evans extended his arms in customary Onathin farewell and cut the transmission. Curious, Prelate Ewardian played the message. Ambassador Evans walked from the bridge of the Relativity to the back, into the cargo holds full of scientific instruments. General Davis and Allen looked at him expectantly.
How did it go?
General Davis asked.
About as well as we could have hoped,
Evans replied.
We knew they probably weren't going to hand over their entire military intelligence network, but I did manage to convince him to send us star maps of the contested areas, as well as census data, so we can begin looking for more Drinel.
Did he buy our refugee story?
General Davis asked.
Well, we are going to assist with evacuating refugees. I just left out the part where we also do a little reconnaissance on the enemy forces for ourselves.
Evans turned as the console on the bridge of the ship beeped again.
That'll be the data we need to get started.
Good.
General Davis stood and motioned to Allen.
Let's get back to Earth.
Allen maneuvered the Relativity away from the interstellar communication anchor and pointed the nose toward Earth. General Davis looked out of the viewports at the half-finished shipyard sleeping in the asteroid belt. By now, the forge was about 1,000 kilometers in diameter, complete with several small hangars that were currently servicing some small mining vessels. General Davis had placed special emphasis that these hangars were to be completed first, as it would greatly speed up the construction time. So much time was wasted when we had to constantly jump back to Earth to get every little scratch fixed up. When the forge was completely finished, it would feature one central 1,000-kilometer-long hangar, complete with ore refineries, conveyor belts, and welding arms that would build massive, megameter-long vessels. The central hangar would be surrounded by hundreds of smaller hangars of varying sizes, able to manufacture small civilian commerce vessels as well as medium cruisers for security forces. A trade ring will encircle the large central hangar, connecting it to the surrounding smaller hangars. From this ring, raw materials and other equipment could be bought and sold by both human and Onathin traders. It would also allow the wealthy to browse through the various ships to find one that best fits their tastes. General Davis was especially excited at the prospect of finally being capable of building actual human warships for the coming war. A white light enwreathed the Relativity, and it sped off towards Earth.
ETA is 2 hours.
Alan said over the intercom.
Derek, the tank's leaking again.
Tara pointed to a bead of water that perspired out of the side of a gray metal tank.
I guess I didn't tighten the joining well enough.
Derek brandished a fist-sized silver object that featured a small screen on its flat side.
Oh well, more excuses to use this.
He smiled as he touched the screen briefly, and broke into a wider grin when the silver object began to elongate itself in his hand, quickly morphing into a wrench.
You're obsessed with that thing.
Tara chided.
Why wouldn't I be obsessed with it?
Derek held out the wrench proudly.
It's an Omni tool. I spent 4 years developing it in graduate school.
He used the Omni tool to tighten the tank.
And it took a whole year in the Nanoforge just to make it this big.
He wiped the water droplet away and beamed as the tank held under the pressure.
How's that?
Tara looked at her console.
Much better. All right, increasing the pressure to 15 atmospheres. How do you feel?
I feel great.
Derek replied.
Not you. I'm talking to him.
Tara gestured at the tank, where the Drinel that they picked up from Sakala Station was swimming around lazily. Comfort, it sang through the tank.
I think it's also bored.
Derek said, looking at the Drinel.
I think we're probably at a pressure that doesn't even come close to how much it can withstand.
Correct. Tara gazed out the window of her lab, looking at the calm Pacific Ocean.
I guess the easiest way to test how much pressure you can withstand is to just see how deep you can swim down the ocean.
She tore her gaze away from the window.
But we're not allowed to do that. We have to quarantine you for now, until we can be sure you won't present a threat to the ocean ecosystems.
No threat. The Drinel radiated.
Don't take it personally. She means that there may be bacteria or other microorganisms living in or on you that could be bad for Earth's oceans.
Derek explained.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I'm going to raise the pressure to 75 atmospheres. Ready?
Tara pushed some buttons on her console. Acknowledged. The Drinel's scales shimmered, and its body contracted slightly. But otherwise, it just rolled around in the water, completely unfazed. Derek eyed the Drinel.
Hey, did you just change your skin a little bit to withstand the pressure?
Affirmative.
How? It looks like your scales sort of rearranged a bit.
Affirmative. Derek looked at Tara nervously, before looking back at the Drinel.
I don't suppose I could get some of them to study?
Derek and Tara were stunned as the Drinel quickly tore off a sizable piece of skin with one of its claws, sending faint whirls of dark brown swirling into the blue water.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean now, specifically, but thanks.
Derek sputtered, bewildered.
Are you okay?
We'll grow back. Natural.
So, Drinel molt, you shed your skin as you grow larger.
Tara asked, noting down the observations into her tablet. Affirmative. The Drinel paddled the piece of skin, complete with iridescent scales, towards the top of the tank. Derek depressurized the tank and retrieved the floating skin. It then began to suck in huge amounts of water and expel the water through 3 orifices located behind its hind limbs.
What are you doing?
Tara asked nervously. Purging microorganisms. Want freedom.
I didn't know you could do that. That's interesting.
Tara muttered as she walked over to the water exchange mechanism in her lab and started to flush out the water in the tank, filling it with fresh, clean water to aid in the purging. General Davis and Ambassador Evans strode into the teleconference chamber in the North American branch of the United Earth government. They heard a loud thunk coming from several floors below. Ambassador Evans shook his head and smiled. Jeremy and Diana must be experimenting with anti-gravity technology. General Davis entered his passcode onto a nearby console and connected their room to 5 other rooms across the world, 4 of which had generals, one of which was the Civilian Council of the United Earth Government. Their faces showed up on the screens around the conference room, which were mounted against the walls, all facing an oval, blank table in the middle of the room.
Greetings, generals. council members.
Ambassador Evans nodded to each in turn.
We've come back from our contact with the Onathin First Prelate regarding the war, and have procured a star map showing the current contested systems.
He loaded the data onto the computer. The blank oval table lit up as the star map drew itself across the table. All of the generals saw it immediately.
General Davis,
One of the other generals exclaimed.
why didn't you tell us that their war had deteriorated so much?
Generals, this is the first time I'm seeing this as well.
Davis turned to Evans.
We're going to need the Hermes completed and operational ASAP.
Hermes is currently undergoing its final phase of construction in the Earthshine station. Another 3 weeks and he should be ready to leave Earth's orbit.
Evans eyed the generals suspiciously.
What's wrong?
Get more people working on it. We're going to need it.
General Davis turned back to view the star map.
The Rentella star cluster will be lost by the end of the week.